The world north of the wall had a way of making a man feel small, not by height or distance, but by indifference. Snow came down in sheets that did not care whether you were a king or a bastard or a lord commander with a sword that had tasted fire. The wind did not bargain, did not hear oaths, and did not pause for prayer. It simply pushed and pushed until even thought felt heavy. Jon Snow kept his eyes narrowed to slits, watching the line of dark shapes ahead of them. Pines like spears, stone like bone, the dim rise of a ridge that might hide anything. They moved in a staggered file, each man choosing his steps as if the ground might bite. In places, it did. Ice glazed the rock, treacherous as polished glass, and the snow concealed holes that swallowed a boot to the knee. Behind him, Tormund Giant's Bane muttered curses to gods Jon didn't know, his big red beard half-frozen, his shoulders hunched against the gale. Sandor Clegane trudged with his hood up, as if trying to hide from the sky itself. The hound's mouth twisted every time the wind found a gap in his cloak. "This is the stupidest thing I've ever done," he said, though he'd said it a dozen times already, each time with fresh conviction. "Save your breath," Jon told him, though he could barely hear his own voice. Breath mattered here. Warmth mattered. Time mattered. Beric Dondarrion walked like a man already dead, which in truth he was more than once. His one good eye stared ahead with the calm of someone who had learned that fear was simply another kind of pain, and pain could be survived. Thuras of Myr stayed close to him, thick-armed and broad-backed, his priest's robes long abandoned for leathers and furs, his cheeks cracked red from cold. He had stopped making jokes hours ago. When Thuras fell silent, Jon knew the cold had truly gotten its claws into them. Jorah Mormont kept his hand near his sword and his gaze sweeping the horizon in slow arcs, as if he could will movement into visibility. There was something grimly familiar in the way he walked, as though this wasteland reminded him of other exiles, other marches. Gendry followed with a hammer slung across his back, his breath coming ragged, his eyes bright with the strain of it. The boy had strength, but the cold ate strength faster than any enemy. They had left Eastwatch with a purpose that felt simple when spoken aloud. Bring back proof. One wight, chained and bound, dragged south like a living dead truth. The sort of thing that could crack a liar's mask. The sort of thing that could force queens and kings to look at the same sky and understand the same doom. Yet walking here, with snow in his lashes and ice in his beard, Jon wondered whether the world had ever been as simple as men wished it. Proof did not always change minds. Sometimes it only sharpened knives. A shape broke the monotony ahead, dark, hulking, half buried in snow. Not rock, not tree. Jon lifted a fist. The line halted, bodies bunching close, eyes strainy.
"No, they..."
"What is it?" Gendry whispered. "Quiet," Jorah said. Jon stepped forward, each footfall deliberate. The shape was too large to be a man, too broad across the shoulders, a mound of fur and bone and something else, as if the world had tried to assemble a beast and failed halfway. Then it moved. It came up in a spray of snow like a thing erupting from the earth itself, all rotten muscle and ice-caked fur, jaws hanging wrong, teeth blackened, eyes a dead, milky white that reflected no light. The bear's roar was more air than sound, a gust forced through a throat that should not have worked at all. It smelled of old blood and frozen decay. Tormund bellowed and charged, axe swinging, but the bear was faster than it had any right to be. It struck at Jon with a sweep of claws that would have split a horse. Jon threw himself sideways, felt the wind of it, the brush of death, and came up with long claw flashing. Steel bit into dead flesh. It should have mattered. Didn't. The bear turned, jaws snapping, and Jon saw his own reflection in those pale eyes. Small, blurred, nearly nothing. Sandor stepped in with a vicious cut aimed at the neck, the sort of blow that would have ended a living beast. The blade struck bone, jarred, and skidded. The bear's head whipped toward him, mouth gaping wider than nature allowed. The hound staggered back with a strangled curse. "Fire!" Thuras shouted, voice cracking. "Fire!" Beric's sword ignited with a flare that was almost holy in the white world. Flame licked along the steel, bright and defiant, and for a moment the snow seemed to draw back from it as if afraid. Beric stepped in, calm as ever, and thrust. Fire met rot. The bear shrieked, the sound tearing at the air, and the stench of burning fur filled Jon's nose. It wasn't enough. The bear kept coming, now half aflame, dead eyes unblinking. It swiped at Beric, caught his shoulder, and threw him aside like a doll. Beric hit the ground hard, flame sputtering, his sword carving a glowing line in the snow. Jon's heart kicked. He moved without thinking, Longclaw sweeping up, driving into the bear's ribcage. The Valyrian steel slid in two easily, like cutting through wet cloth. The bear convulsed, jaws snapping at nothing, and Jon wrenched the blade free with both hands. Again! Yora shouted, and he was in there too, sword thrusting, his face a mask of strain. Gendry swung his hammer with a grunt that was half prayer. The blow landed on the bear's skull with a crack that echoed even through the storm. The creature's head snapped sideways, bones splintering, and at last its movements faltered. It sagged, flames eating into it, and collapsed into the snow with a hiss of melting ice. For a moment, only their breathing filled the world. Steam rose from the bear's burning corpse. Snow tried to smother it, but the flames fought back, stubborn as any living thing. 7 hells, Sandor said, voice hoarse. His eyes were wide despite himself. He looked at the corpse as if it might rise again, and perhaps it would have if not for the fire. Thuras bent over Beric, who sat up slowly, as if waking from a nap. Blood seeped dark through his leathers. He didn't seem to notice. "You're getting too comfortable with dying," Thuras muttered. Beric's mouth quirked. "It's getting too comfortable with me." Jon forced himself to look away from the smoldering corpse. If there was one white bear, there would be others. Not bears, perhaps wolves, men, things worse. The Night King's army was not a host in the way living men marched. It was a hunger that wore bodies like cloaks. "Move," Jon said. "We can't stay." They moved. The storm eased only to the extent that the wind shifted, finding new angles. The sky remained a sheet of pale iron. Hours passed in a blur of cold and trudging and the sound of their own boots crunching through snow. When the frozen lake finally revealed itself, flat and wide and deceptively peaceful, Jon felt the prickling certainty of a trap. The world grew quiet there, as if the wind itself had learned to hold its breath. They saw the dead before they heard them, shapes scattered across the far side of the lake, motionless at first, like stones left by a careless god. Then one moved, then another, then the whole field of them began to stir, turning their heads in unison, as if scenting the living. There was no negotiation in their approach. No hesitation, just inevitability. "Back," Jon snapped, and they retreated toward the nearest rise, an outcrop of rock thrusting up through the ice like a broken tooth. They scrambled onto it, boots slipping, hands grabbing stone that burned with cold, and when they looked back the whites were already spilling onto the lake. They came in a tide, a mass of bodies that should have collapsed under their own weight but did not. Some wore the remnants of wildling furs. Some wore the ragged black of the Night's Watch. Some were naked, their skin blue-white, their limbs too thin. All had the same eyes, the same dead blue light that made Jon's stomach clench. They reached the rock and piled up, clawing at stone, fingers breaking, bones cracking, yet still they climbed. Jon swung Longclaw and took a head clean off. The body kept climbing until Tormund's axe split it from collarbone to belly. Even then it writhed, hands grasping, until Sandor stamped it down with a snarl. "Hold!" Jon shouted, though it sounded absurd. Hold against an ocean. Beric's flaming sword became a beacon, each sweep leaving burning trails through dead flesh. Thuras shoved a torch into a face and watched it catch. Yora fought with the efficiency of a man who knew there would be no second chance. Gendry swung his hammer until his arms shook. Still they came. Then, as suddenly as it began, the tide halted. The whites froze in place on the ice, bodies poised mid-climb, heads tilted toward the living as if listening. The ring tightened, but no one moved. It was as if a hand had closed around the army's throat. Jon's breath came loud in his ears. He stared out over the lake and saw, far back, taller shapes standing still. White walkers pale as moonlight, spears like ice. They watched with the calm of masters watching hounds. "They're waiting," Tormund said, voice low. "For once, no jest. They know we can't run." Thoris's teeth chattered. Why would they wait? Jon followed the line of the White Walker's gaze, and understanding hit him like a blow. The lake between them was frozen now, but it would not stay frozen. Not forever. Their own warmth, their own breath, their own blood would melt the ice beneath the whites. And when it cracked, the dead would pour over in a fresh wave, climbing over one another, unstoppable. "They're not waiting," Jon said. "They're counting." Gendry swallowed hard. "What do we do?" Jon looked at the ring of dead, at the cold sky, at the distant ridge that might as well have been the edge of the world. He thought of the raven they'd sent. He thought of Dragonstone, of a queen with 3 dragons, of a promise made in desperation. He made a decision that felt like ripping his own heart out. "You run," he told Gendry. "What?" Gendry stared. "No." "You run," Jon repeated, voice iron. "Back to the wall. Get a message to Daenerys Targaryen. Tell her we're trapped at the lake. Tell her." He swallowed the taste of fear. "Tell her we need the dragons." Gendry's eyes flicked over the ice, over the ring of dead. "I won't make it." "You will," Jon said, and he made it sound like an order, because orders were easier than hope. "You're the fastest." Tormund grabbed Gendry by the shoulder, his grip bruising. "Go," he growled. "Go now, Smith." Gendry's throat worked. He looked at Jon, and in his face Jon saw a boy who had never asked to matter, suddenly told that he did. Then Gendry nodded once, hard, and leapt down from the rock. The whites did not move as he ran. They stood like statues, heads turning in perfect unison to follow him. Gendry's boots pounded over ice, and the sound seemed to echo for miles. Jon watched until the snow swallowed him, until only emptiness remained where he had been. Then Jon turned back to the dead and tightened his grip on Longclaw. When darkness came, it came fast, as if the day had been a thin curtain ripped away. The stars above were cold and sharp, scattered like spilled salt across black. The wind quieted until it became a whisper, and the silence pressed in so hard Jon could hear the crackle of Beric's sword and the wet rasp of Thoris's breathing. They huddled close, backs to one another, torches jammed into cracks in the stone. The warmth was an insult, a tiny defiance in a world made of ice. It did not reach far. Beyond the rock, the whites stood in a ring, hundreds, perhaps thousands, still as corpses in a graveyard, eyes glowing faintly blue. The White Walkers remained where they had been, taller shadows among shadows. Their presence felt more than seen. Occasionally one would tilt its head, as if listening to a song the living could not hear. "They'll come when the ice breaks," Yora said quietly, voice careful. He did not want to spend fear. Fear was precious. Sandor gave a humorless laugh. "So we just wait to die. We wait to live," Jon said, and hated how thin it sounded. Tormund sat with his knees drawn up, axe across his lap. He stared at the dead ring with a look that was half anger, half something like grief. "My people told stories," he said, "about night that lasted a year, about cold that ate babies in their cradles. I thought it was old men scaring children." He spat into the snow, and the spit froze before it hit the ground. "Turns out the old men were right." Thoros rubbed his hands near the flame. His lips cracked. "The Lord of Light brought us here," he murmured, but there was no confidence in it. "He wouldn't bring us here to die." Beric's one good eye flicked to him. "He brought me back to die, again and again. Perhaps this is simply my habit." Thurza's mouth twisted. "You're not dying tonight." Beric's gaze returned to the whites. "Don't promise what you can't pay for." Jon watched the ice. It had already begun to change. Near the edge, a faint line of darker wetness spread, slow as ink. Their heat, their breath, the small fires. They were doing exactly what the dead waited for. Jon felt rage spark, useless and hot. A trap so simple, so patient. He thought of Daenerys Targaryen, far south, in the warmth of Dragonstone. He thought of dragons, creatures of fire and scale and ancient blood. He thought of her face when he had spoken of the Night King. She had believed him, but belief was not the same as understanding. Not until you saw blue eyes in a dead face. Not until you heard the silence of an army that did not breathe. "Do you trust her?" Yora asked suddenly. Jon looked at him. Yora's eyes were fixed not on Jon, but on the ice, as if the question pained him to speak. Jon answered honestly, "I trust she wants to live." Yora's mouth tightened. "That's not always enough." Jon could have said many things. He could have spoken of honor, of promises, of the way Daenerys had flown north when she did not have to, the way she had looked at the dead with shock that turned quickly to fury. He could have said she was not like Cersei, not like the rulers who only saw their own crowns. But the truth was Jon did not know what kind of queen she would be when pressed. "I don't know," he admitted. Yora nodded once, as if he had expected that answer. "Neither do I," he said. "But if she comes, I will die to keep her alive." Sandor snorted. "I'm not dying for any queen." Tormund grinned, teeth white in the dark. "You'll die for a good story, dog." Sandor's eyes flashed. "I'll die because you idiots dragged me into a frozen grave." They fell quiet again. Time stretched. The ice darkened further at the edge. The dead did not move, but Jon felt them like pressure behind his eyes. Then, faint at first, like distant thunder, a sound trembled through the night. Not thunder, wings. Jon stood so fast his legs threatened to slip. The others rose too, heads snapping toward the dark sky. The ring of wights remained still, but their heads lifted as one. The sound grew, deep and heavy, an ancient rhythm that made Jon's bones hum. A shadow passed over the stars, and then fire lit the world. Flame roared down in a column so bright it turned snow to gold. The nearest wights caught like kindling, their bodies igniting with a crackle that sounded too much like laughter. Heat slammed into Jon's face, sudden and violent, and he sucked in a breath that tasted of smoke instead of ice. Drogon landed first, talons carving grooves in the frozen lake, wings beating storms into the air. Daenerys Targaryen sat astride him like she had been born there, her pale hair whipping around her face, eyes fierce. Behind her, Regal swept low, his green-black scales catching the firelight, and Viserion. Cream and gold followed, his wings vast, his roar higher, almost a scream of defiance at the dead below. For a heartbeat, Jon forgot cold. He forgot fear. He saw only power made flesh. Daenerys's gaze found him on the rock, and something in her face tightened. Shock at the sight of the dead ring, anger at the trap, relief at seeing him alive. She did not wave. There was no time for gesture. She gave an order in a language Jon did not know, and Drogon unleashed fire again, sweeping it in a broad arc that carved a burning path through the wights. The dead screamed as they burned, but the sound did not carry the way living screams did. It was hollow, as if the bodies were merely vessels for something else that hated fire. "Move!" Jon shouted, voice cracking. "To the dragons!" The men scrambled down from the rock, boots sliding, torches flaring. Drogon crouched, massive head lowering, as if offering himself like a bridge. Regal hovered, snapping at wights that dared to come close. Viserion swung his head and poured fire in a narrow stream, precise as a sword thrust, melting ice and burning bodies alike. Jon ran, long claw in hand, the world a blur of flame and shadow. Wights that had stood motionless now surged, the spell of waiting broken. They threw themselves at the dragon's legs, at the men, at anything living, climbing over burning corpses without hesitation. Yora reached Drogon first and hauled himself up, armor clanking. Sandor climbed with a curse, dragging himself like a man scaling a wall. Thuras followed, panting, and Tormund leapt with wild grace, landing on Drogon's back as if he'd done it all his life. Beric lingered only long enough to slash a wight's head from its shoulders, then clambered up too, his flaming sword leaving streaks of light in the dark. Jon was almost there when he felt it, cold, sudden, and absolute, as if the air itself had stopped breathing. The firelight dimmed, the snow stiffened. Jon looked up, and across the lake, on a rise of ice and stone, stood the Night King. He was taller than Jon remembered seeing from the wall, his armor like plates of frozen night. His eyes burned blue, not dim like the Whites, but bright, ancient. Around him stood the White Walkers, still and silent. The Night King's head tilted slightly, as if considering Daenerys Targaryen the way a man might consider a new weapon. Then he lifted his arm. In his hand was a spear of ice so long it looked like a shard torn from a glacier. He drew it back with smooth, terrible ease. "No!" Jon shouted, but his voice was nothing against the distance. Daenerys saw it too. Her body tensed. Drogon's wings flared. For a fraction of a second, time held its breath. The spear flew, cut through the air with a hiss that felt like winter itself. Jon watched it streak toward the sky, toward the dragons, toward Viserion. Viserion banked, wings beating hard, and the spear missed him by a span of air so small Jon's heart stopped. The ice shard sailed past Viserion's chest and struck Drogon instead, high along the ridge of his shoulder, where wing met muscle. The impact was brutal. Drogon screamed, the sound shaking the air. His wing faltered, and Daenerys grabbed the spines along his neck to stay seated. Blood, dark and steaming, spattered onto the ice below, melting it in small, hissing pools. Drogon did not fall. He beat his wings with furious strength, lifting himself higher, but pain made his movements uneven. His fire sputtered. The whites surged, sensing weakness. Daenerys' face went pale under the soot. She looked from Drogon's wound to the Night King, and fury twisted her features into something sharp enough to cut. She shouted again, and Regal dove toward the Night King, fire roaring. The White Walkers stepped back with unnatural grace. The flames washed over the rise, but the Night King was already moving, calm as ever, retreating into shadow and storm. Viserion wheeled back, screaming, and unleashed fire at the mass of whites now clawing at Drogon's legs. The heat blasted them away. For a moment, the path cleared. Jon ran. He reached Drogon's side as the dragon lowered himself, wings beating slow. The heat from Drogon's body radiated like a forge, and Jon felt his face sting. He grabbed a scale ridge and pulled himself up, boots slipping on leather and blood. Daenerys leaned down, hand outstretched, not for him, but as if to steady herself, to anchor something human in the chaos. Her fingers brushed his arm, and he felt the tremor in her grip. "Hold on," she shouted, voice raw. "Hold on." Drogon surged upward, and the world dropped away beneath them. Air slammed into Jon like a fist. The ground, ice, dead, flame, fell away, shrinking into a churning pattern beneath them. Jon clung to a strap with numb fingers, his body jerking with each beat of Drogon's injured wing. Below, the whites clustered in a writhing mass, reaching up with hands that could not reach. Some fell through cracks in the ice where the heat and the weight had done their work, disappearing into black water without a sound. Others simply climbed over them, indifferent. Viserion flew alongside, close enough that Jon could see the pattern of gold along his neck, the sheen of frost on his teeth. Viserion's eyes were bright, alive, and in them Jon saw no fear, only anger, a dragon's rage at being hunted. Regal circled above, keeping watch, his roar a warning to anything that dared reach too high. Drogon's breathing was ragged. Jon could feel the shuddering in his muscles, the tension in the wing that had been struck. Daenerys leaned forward, speaking to him in a low voice that sounded like a lullaby and a command at once. Drogon answered with a pained growl. They shot toward the wall, a black line rising from the white world like a blade. Eastwatch's torches flickered in the distance, tiny sparks against the vastness. Jon's arms burned. His fingers felt like wood. He forced himself to keep hold. And then he saw it, movement below them on the ice nearer the shore. Not wights, something faster. A handful of white walkers, gliding over the frozen lake with impossible speed, spears raised. One of them hurled its weapon. The spear flew not at the dragons, but at Jon. Jon barely had time to register the icy point before instinct took over. He twisted, and the spear clipped his leg, tearing through leather and flesh. Pain flared bright and hot, shocking him awake. His grip slipped. For a heartbeat, he was weightless. He fell. The world spun. Snow and sky traded places. Jon's scream was swallowed by the wind. He saw Drogon's silhouette above, Daenerys turning, reaching, her face contorted with horror. Then ice hit him like stone. The shock knocked the breath out of him. His body skidded across the frozen surface, blood spraying behind him in a dark ribbon. He rolled, came to rest near a crack in the ice where black water lapped, hungry. Wights surged toward him instantly, as if his fall had been a signal. Their arms reached, their fingers clawed. Jon tried to stand. His legs screamed. His hands fumbled for Longclaw. He found it, grip slick with blood, and swung. Valyrian steel cleaved a wight's arm off. Kept coming. Another grabbed his cloak. Jon slashed again, blades singing through dead flesh. He fought like a man who had no right to still be alive. Above, Drogon roared and fire poured down, but the injured wing made the angle wrong. The flames hit wights, melted ice, and widened the cracks. Black water opened, and wights tumbled in, only to climb out again, wet and relentless. Daenerys screamed his name, and Jon Ardea, distant as a dream. He saw her, small against Drogon's great neck, hair whipping, eyes frantic, and something twisted in him. He could not ask her to die here. Not for him. Not now. Go! He roared, though she couldn't hear. Go! The ice beneath his feet cracked with a sharp report. Cold water surged up, soaking his boots, biting. He staggered back towards solid ice, but wights pressed in, surrounding him like wolves. Then a horn sounded from the darkness. Not from Eastwatch. Closer, behind the wights, deep and mournful. The dead halted. For the second time that night, the wights froze mid-lunge, heads turning. A rider appeared out of the storm like a ghost made solid, Benjen Stark, cloak flapping, face half hidden by a scarf of fur, eyes hard as winter. His horse was no living horse, its breath misting white, its hooves striking sparks from the ice. Benjen drove a flaming blade into the nearest wight, fire blooming, and the dead shrank back from him as if repelled. He grabbed Jon by the collar with a strength that belied his lean frame. Move, Benjen growled. Now. Jon's mind felt slow, clogged with cold and blood loss. Benjen. No time. Benjen half-dragged, half threw Jon onto the horse behind him. Jon's arms wrapped weakly around Benjen's waist. The horse surged forward, hoofs pounding across ice, weaving between frozen wights that did not move. The wights remained still, but the white walkers did not. One stepped forward, spear raised, blue eyes burning with anger at this theft. Benjen leaned close to Jon's ear. Hold, he said. Whatever happens, hold. They raced toward the wall, toward Eastwatch's black gates, toward the only line between life and death. Behind them, the Night King watched from his ridge, unmoving, eyes following the dragons as they vanished south. Jon did not see the Night King lift his hand again. He did not see the White Walkers turn away. He did not see them begin already to learn. The sea around Dragonstone was a different kind of cold, salty, and damp, full of teeth. Waves slammed against black rock with the impatience of a battering ram. The air smelled of brine and smoke, because even here, fire followed Daenerys Targaryen like a shadow. Drogon lay on the beach like a fallen mountain, his body rising and falling in pained breaths. Blood seeped from the wound high on his shoulder, dark and thick, steaming where it touched the cold air. Men moved around him with the nervousness of ants near a god, carrying buckets of heated water, strips of cloth, needles, tools they scarcely knew how to use. Daenerys stood close enough that Drogon's heat made the wind curl away from her. Her hands were stained with his blood. She had tried to touch the wound, to see, to understand, but the dragon's pain radiated through him in a way that made even her flinch. Drogon's eye, vast, black, reflecting firelight, opened and fixed on her, and she whispered to him in Valyrian, voice shaking. Drogon's breath came out as a low rumble, not comforted but soothed by her presence. Jorah Mormont hovered nearby, his face grim. He had taken wounds north of the wall, scratches that would have killed a lesser man in that cold. Here they bled slowly, reminding him that he was still mortal. Missandei stood with her hands clasped, lips parted, eyes wide. Grey Worm watched the horizon like he expected the dead to rise from the sea. When Jon Snow was carried up the stone steps, the night seemed to tighten. He was half-conscious, his hair stiff with salt and snow, his skin pale under grime. His leg was bandaged, cloth already darkening with blood. 2 men hauled him between them, grunting with effort. Davos Seaworth walked ahead, lantern raised, jaw clenched like it might crack. Daenerys turned at the sound, and when she saw Jon, something changed in her face. Anger at the world, fear that she would not admit, relief like a knife sliding free. "Bring him inside," she commanded, and her voice was sharp enough to cut stone. They carried him into the warmth of the great hall, where braziers burned and shadows danced on carved dragon faces. Jon's eyelids fluttered. He tried to speak. Only a rasp came out. Daenerys stepped forward, and without thinking she reached down, her fingers brushing his cheek. His skin was cold, too cold. She felt a flare of rage so intense she almost shook. "He fell," Davos said, voice thick. He swallowed. "He would have died if not for Benjen Stark." The dead were waiting, like animals in a trap. Daenerys' hand trembled. "And the Night King?" Jon's eyes opened just a fraction, dark and unfocused. His lips moved. Daenerys leaned in, close enough to feel his breath. "He threw," Jon whispered. "He can kill dragons." Silence swallowed the room. Even the crackle of fire seemed to hesitate. Daenerys' gaze flicked, instinctively, to the windows, to the dark beyond, to where Drogon lay wounded and Viserion and Regal circled the island like restless storms. Her dragons were not invincible. She had known that in theory, in old stories, in the way men sometimes stared at her with too much calculation. But she had never felt it in her bones until she saw Drogon's blood steaming on black sand. Jon's eyes slid shut again. His breathing steadied slightly as warmth reached him. Someone, an assistant, a healer, pressed a cup to his lips, coaxed him to drink. He swallowed, barely. Daenerys straightened. Her hands curled into fists at her sides, nails biting skin. "Where is the proof?" she asked. Davos's mouth tightened. "We got it," he said. "Barely. They chained one of them, put it in a crate. It's here." Daenerys' throat worked. She looked down at Jon, at the stubborn set of his jaw even in exhaustion, at the way pain could not fully erase the stubbornness in him. He had gone into that wasteland for proof, not for pride. He had nearly died for it. For a moment, Daenerys saw him not as a rival or an ally or a northern lord she needed. She saw him as someone who had stared into a darkness she had only glimpsed and had refused to blink. She withdrew her hand from his cheek as if afraid she would reveal too much. "Then we show them," she said, voice low. "We show them all." The war room smelled of smoke, salt, and ink. The painted table map of Westeros lay under torchlight like a wounded thing, rivers and mountains carved into wood, castles marked by black towers. Daenerys stood at its head, hands planted on the edge, eyes hard. Tyrion Lannister watched her with the careful expression of a man measuring the distance between decision and disaster. The crate sat near the door, iron-banded and chained. It moved occasionally with a faint scrape that set every nerve on edge. Two Unsullied stood beside it with spears, faces expressionless, but even they shifted their weight when the sound came. Jon Snow leaned against a pillar, wrapped in furs, his face still too pale. He should have been in bed. He had refused. The North had carved that refusal into him long before Daenerys had ever met him. He watched the others with a steadiness that made Tyrion's skin prickle. "We sail at dawn," Daenerys said. "We bring this to King's Landing." Tyrion's brow furrowed. "Your Grace, don't," she snapped, not loudly, but with the kind of sharpness that silenced a room. Then her tone softened just a fraction. "Don't tell me it's dangerous. I know." Varys folded his hands. "Cersei Lannister is not a woman who is moved by fear," he said gently. "She is moved by opportunity. Bringing proof may not bring unity. It may bring calculation." "It will bring reality," Jon said, voice rough. All eyes turned to him. He pushed off the pillar, limping slightly as he stepped forward. "She can calculate all she wants. The dead won't care. When they come, her walls will mean nothing." Tyrion rubbed at his mouth, the gesture of a man who would like to drink but knew better. "We're not debating whether the threat is real," he said. His gaze flicked to the crate as it scraped again. "We're debating whether showing her will make her act in the way we want." Daenerys's eyes flashed. "And what other way do you suggest?" she demanded. "If we do nothing, she sits on her throne and waits for us to bleed ourselves dry against the Night King. Then she takes what's left." "That is likely," Tyrion admitted, "which is why we need leverage." Grey Worm spoke in his flat, precise voice. "We have dragons." Tyrion's eyes narrowed. "We have dragons," he echoed, and there was something weary in it. "And that is why Cersei will look for a way to take them away." Daenerys's jaw clenched. She thought of the ice spear, of Drogon's scream, of blood steaming on sand. The memory made her stomach knot. "Viserion and Rhaegal will not land in the city," she said. "They will circle. Drogon will be near, but he will not be vulnerable." Tyrion opened his mouth, then closed it again. He knew better than to press too hard when she had already decided. Still, he looked at Jon, perhaps hoping the northern man would say something that would slow her. Jon met his gaze without flinching. "If she doesn't believe, she will never help," Jon said. "If she never helps, we fight too. Wars. One against the dead and one against her. We can't win that." Varys's eyes glittered in the torchlight. "There is also the matter of perception," he murmured. 3 dragons above King's Landing will look like conquest." Daenerys's laugh was sharp. "It is conquest," she said. "I won the Dothraki, I freed the Unsullied, I crossed the sea. I did not come here to beg." "And yet," Missandei said softly, "you are going to King's Landing to ask for a truce." Daenerys looked at her friend, and the hardness in her gaze softened. "I am going to make them see," she said. "And if they still choose blindness, then they deserve what comes." The crate scraped again as if in agreement. Davos cleared his throat. "We should test it," he said, uneasy. "Make sure it's—" The crate burst. The lid flew off with a crack of wood and iron, and the white exploded out like a spring released. It was a man once, or something near enough. Skin gray-blue, lips black, eyes burning cold. Chains snapped as it lunged, fingers clawing for Daenerys. Grey Worm moved like a blade. He thrust his spear through its chest, pinning it to the floor. The white thrashed, snapping its teeth inches from Grey Worm's face, and the Unsullied did not flinch. Jon drew Longclaw in a smooth motion and swung, severing the white's head. The body still writhed, hands clawing at stone, until someone thorough, moving faster than a man his size should, shoved a torch into its ribs. Flame caught. The white shrieked, a sound that made the hair on Daenerys's arms rise, and then it collapsed into blackened ruin. Silence returned, thicker than before. Daenerys stared at the smoking corpse, breathing hard. Her heart hammered. She looked at Tyrion, at Varys, at the men who doubted and the men who believed, at Jon, who had faced this and still stood. "We sail at dawn," she repeated, voice like iron. No one argued. Dawn broke over the sea like a bruise, gray and purple and cold. Dragonstone fell behind them, its dark towers shrinking into mist. The fleet moved in a tight formation, sails snapping, oars biting water. Above, shadows wheeled 3 dragons, their wings beating a slow, relentless rhythm that made the men on deck glance upward with awe and fear both. Tyrion stood near the prow with Davos, his cloak pulled tight. The sea wind tried to pry thoughts out of his head. He watched the dragons overhead and could not help imagining what Cersei would see when those shadows crossed King's Landing. How her eyes would narrow, how her mind would race. "She'll panic," Davos said, as if reading him. Tyrion snorted softly. "Cersei doesn't panic," he said. "She plots." Jon Snow stood a short distance away, hands on the rail, staring toward the horizon as if he could see through miles of water and fog to the land beyond. His face had regained some color, but there was a tightness around his eyes now that hadn't been there before. North of the wall had left marks no fire could burn away. "You're thinking of the wall," Tyrion said. Jon glanced at him. "I'm thinking of how much time we wasted," Jon replied. Tyrion exhaled. "We wasted years," he said, voice quieter. "All of us, on crowns and insults and old grudges. Now we barter for days like beggars." Jon's gaze returned to the coast. "Days are all we have," he said. "If she refuses." "If she refuses," Tyrion finished. "We fight without her. And then, after, if there is an after, we fight her anyway." He looked up as Viserion soared overhead, pale wings catching the weak sun. "At least this time, we bring a monster to a monster and hope they recognize each other." The coastline emerged from fog like a memory. Green-brown cliffs, dark pines, the distant smear of civilization. Somewhere ahead, King's Landing waited, fat with pride, blind to the cold creeping down from the north. As they drew closer, ravens appeared overhead, black specks that circled and flew inland. Scouts, perhaps, news traveling faster than ships ever could. On deck, men murmured. Even the unsullied shifted with a faint ripple of tension. They were warriors, but they were also men, and men feared what they did not understand. Dragons they understood as weapons. The dead they understood as stories. Bringing the two together in the same breath made the world feel wrong. Daenerys stood at the bow of her ship, hair braided back, eyes fixed on the horizon. The wind tugged at her cloak, and she did not move. Missandei stood near her, and Grey Worm waited a step behind, his presence like a wall. Daenerys' face was calm, but Jon saw the tension in her shoulders, the way her hand occasionally flexed as if feeling for heat. Tyrion watched her too, and wondered what she was thinking. Perhaps of her father's city. Perhaps of the throne she had dreamed of since she was a girl. Perhaps of the spear of ice that had made her understand that power could bleed. A dragon's shadow passed over the water, and for a moment the sea looked like ink. Ahead, the city rose. First the red walls, then the hill, then the spires and towers like teeth. The Red Keep perched above it all, proud and ancient and cruel. King's Landing. The fleet slowed, preparing to anchor outside the harbor. There would be no triumphant sailing in. Not yet. Not with Cersei watching from behind stone. Jon's stomach nodded, not with fear for himself, but with the knowledge that every word spoken today could decide whether winter ate the world. Above, Drogon roared, and the sound rolled across the water like thunder. The Dragonpit was a broken crown of stone, its arches cracked, its seats half collapsed, its floor littered with old bones and newer dust. Once it had held dragons. Now it held ghosts, memories of fire and screams, and the slow death of a dynasty that had thought itself eternal. Cersei Lannister stood at the far end in a gown of black that drank light. She looked carved rather than dressed, sharp lines and sharper eyes. Jaime stood beside her, armor gleaming faintly, his golden hand resting at his side. His face was tight, his jaw clenched, as if his body remembered the weight of every oath he had broken. Euron Greyjoy lounged a little behind, smiling like a man watching a game he thought he had already won. His eyes tracked the sky more than the ground. He had the look of someone imagining ships burning, imagining dragons falling, imagining glory that smelled of ash. When Daenerys entered, the air changed. She walked with measured steps, shoulders back, chin raised, flanked by Unsullied and Dothraki whose hands rested lightly on her rocks. Tyrion Lannister walked at her side, his face composed with effort, his eyes flicking from Cersei to Jaime to Euron and back. Missandei followed, calm as ever. Grey Worm moved like a shadow. Jon Snow walked slightly behind Daenerys, not hidden but not placed as an equal either, an arrangement that spoke volumes to those who listened with their eyes. Davos came with him, hands clasped, gaze wary. Varys glided somewhere near the edge, already counting possible futures. Above, the sound of wings drifted through broken arches. Shadows passed across stone as Drogon, Regal, and Viserion circled, their roars echoing off old walls. The dragons did not land. They did not bow. They simply existed, and that existence was a threat. Cersei's eyes lifted briefly, and Jon saw a flicker, something like fear, quickly buried beneath contempt. She looked back at Daenerys, and her mouth curved into a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Your Grace," Cersei said, voice smooth, "how kind of you to come to my city." Daenerys did not smile. "It is not your city," she said. "It belongs to the realm." Cersei's eyebrows rose, as if amused. "Does it?" she asked. "Strange. It seems to belong to the one who holds it." Tyrion swallowed, but he stepped forward. "Sister," he said, and the word carried years of poison. "We didn't come to trade insults." Cersei's gaze slid to him like a knife. "No," she said softly. "You came to threaten me with shadows and foreign soldiers." Daenerys's eyes flashed. "I came to save the living," she said, "including you, whether you deserve it or not." Cersei laughed. "Quiet. Save me?" she echoed. "From what?" Tyrion gestured, and two men dragged forward a new crate, heavier and more tightly bound than the one on Dragonstone. Iron bands circled it. Chains were layered like a spider's web. Cersei watched the crate with a bored expression that was too carefully crafted. Jaime's posture stiffened. Euron leaned forward, curious despite himself. "This," Tyrion said, "is what's coming." Cersei's eyes narrowed. "A box," she said. "How terrifying." Daenerys stepped forward, and her voice cut through the ruin like flame through cloth. "Open it," she commanded. Cersei's gaze did not leave her. "No," she said, as if discussing whether. "I don't take orders from girls who play at queens." Jon felt tension coil in his chest. He could hear the dragons above, their roars deepening, as if sensing the hostility below. He watched Jaime, and in Jaime's eyes he saw something like dread not for himself, but for what Cersei would do if she decided this was simply another game. Tyrion took a breath, and Jon could see the effort in it. He stepped closer to the crate, hands out. "Then I will," he said. He reached for the latch. The crate shook, hard, a scrape of nails on wood. A hiss like breath forced through dead lungs. Cersei's face did not change, but her eyes sharpened. Jaime's mouth tightened. Euron's smile faltered for the briefest moment. Tyrion yanked the latch free and stepped back. The lid burst open, and the wight lunged out with a snarl that was all hunger. Chains snapped tight, holding it just short of Cersei. His eyes burned blue. The skin was gray. His teeth clicked, frantic, trying to bite the air. It strained toward Cersei as if it knew her, as if it could smell the rot inside her and mistook it for kin. For the first time, Cersei's composure cracked. Her lips parted. Her hand twitched. Her eyes widened just slightly, and in that fraction Jon saw the truth. She believed. She had to. No lie could stand in front of that. The wight thrashed, chains rattling. It snapped at Jaime, who stepped back despite himself. Euron swore under his breath. Daenerys watched Cersei with eyes like storm clouds. "That is one," she said. There are hundreds of thousands. They are marching. They do not tire. They do not stop. And they will come for you, and your child, and your city, and your throne. And they will not care which god you pray to." Cersei's gaze flicked, involuntarily, to her belly, barely visible beneath black. The motion was small. Jon saw it anyway. Jaime saw it too, and something in his face softened, then hardened, as if he was bracing for the next blow. Cersei drew in a slow breath. Her chin lifted, her eyes narrowed again, and the crack sealed over like ice refreezing. She looked at Daenerys and smiled. "I see," Cersei said softly. "And what is it you want from me?" Above, a dragon roared, Viserion's voice, high and fierce, a warning to the world. Jon watched Cersei smile and felt, in his bones, that proof had never been the true battle. The true battle would be whether a monster could choose not to be one. Cersei Lannister's smile held, but it held the way ice held over black water, smooth on the surface, treacherous beneath, waiting for the weight of a single step. The white strained against its chains until iron groaned, its dead eyes fixed on her as if it recognized a kindred cruelty. It snapped, jaw working on nothing, a hunger that could not be sated because it did not belong to flesh. Daenerys Targaryen did not look away. Her face was lit by the white's cold blue glare and by the warmer, flickering firelight brought by torches and Beric Dondarrion's still smoking blade. The contrast made her seem carved from two worlds at once, one of flame, one of frost. "What I want," Daenerys said, voice steady, "is for you to live long enough to understand what it means to lose everything." Cersei's eyes narrowed. "How generous." "We don't have time for pride," Tyrion Lannister cut in, and the words sounded like they had been pulled from somewhere deep and bitter. He stepped forward, hands spread, as though approaching a frightened animal. "The dead are marching. The Night King is real. We have seen him. We have fought his army. They do not stop. They do not bargain. They don't care who sits your throne. And yet," Cersei said softly, "you still want me to help you keep yours." Daenerys's jaw tightened. "I want you to commit your forces to the north, to the wall, to the living. If the dead breach it, there will be no south to hide in." Cersei's gaze slid to Jon Snow. "You," she said, almost as if tasting the word, "the northern bastard who calls himself king." Jon's expression did not change. "I don't call myself king," he said. "The North did." "That must be a comfort," Cersei replied. Her voice never rose. She did not need it to. The Dragonpit amplified every syllable, turned quiet contempt into a blade you could hear. She glanced upward as another shadow passed over broken stone. Somewhere above, a dragon roared, deep and distant, like thunder in a mountain. Cersei's eyes flicked, just once, betraying that she felt it. "3 dragons," she said. "A charming argument. Threaten me with fire, ask me for my soldiers, and call it saving the realm." Daenerys's eyes flashed. "If I wanted your city burned, it would already be ash." Euron Greyjoy chuckled from the edge of the gathering, the sound oily as tar. "I'd pay to see that." Jaime Lannister shot him a look like a warning, and Euron's grin only widened. Tyrion forced himself to keep his voice level. "No one is here to burn King's Landing," he said. "We're here to prevent every city from becoming a graveyard." Cersei studied the white again, as if assessing whether it could truly climb walls, whether it could truly kill her. She watched it snap, watched the chain strain, watched the way it never tired. For a moment, something like calculation sharpened behind her eyes, an archer sighting a target. "What is it you want precisely?" she asked, as if discussing attacks. "A truce," Daenerys said. "An end to this war between us until the dead are destroyed. You send your armies north. You keep your fleets from attacking ours. You don't move against us while we fight." Cersei's smile returned in full, as though she had just been offered a gift. "So I do nothing," she said, "and you fight your war. And when you win, if you win, you return south with dragons and armies and take my throne anyway." Daenerys took a step forward, and the Unsullied behind her shifted in perfect unison. "If we lose," Daenerys said, "you will be dead. There will be no throne. And if you win," Cersei murmured, "you will have proved the gods favor you." Jon's voice cut through the thin, dangerous pause. "There are no gods in that army," he said. "Only death. If you want your child to live." Cersei's hand twitched, barely, and Jaime's head snapped toward her, as if the motion had betrayed something she did not intend to show. Cersei's gaze remained fixed on Jon. "My child?" she repeated, too softly. Tyrion's eyes narrowed, and Jon felt the room shift, an awareness spreading like spilled oil. But Cersei recovered quickly, her smile sharpening again. "You speak boldly for a man who needs my help," she said to Jon. "Tell me, King in the North, will you swear that you will not take up arms against me? Not now, not later, not when this is over." Daenerys turned her head, a fraction, and Jon could feel her attention like heat on skin. Tyrion's eyes widened in warning. Davos Seaworth looked as if he wanted to shout and could not find the breath. The dead white snapped again, impatient at politics it could not understand. Jon's throat tightened. He understood the trap immediately. If he swore, he broke faith with Daenerys and the very alliance they'd bled for. If he refused, Cersei would use it as excuse to turn away, to let the realm rot while she kept her crown polished. He thought of the frozen lake, of the blue eyes in dead faces, of men screaming as they were torn apart, of Drogon's blood steaming on ice. He thought of Winterfell, of Sansa Stark's stubborn courage, of children who would freeze before they even knew why. Jon met Cersei's gaze and felt nothing but cold. "I can't," he said. The words landed like a stone dropped into still water. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Even the whites' rattling chains seemed to pause, as if the dead itself listened. Cersei's smile became something else, an expression of satisfied disappointment. "Of course you can't," she said. "Honor. Northern honor. How tedious." She lifted her chin slightly and looked past Jon to Daenerys. "There," she said, as if presenting proof. "You see what you're dealing with. You ask me to gamble my city and my child on promises made by men who cannot even lie when the realm demands it." Tyrion's voice came out strained. "Cersei," she raised a hand and cut him off without looking. "I have seen enough." Her eyes flicked briefly toward the dragon's shadows sliding above the broken arches. "Put your corpse back in its box," she said, as if dismissing a jester. Then she turned as if the matter were closed. Jaime Lannister's face tightened, and for an instant Jon saw the war in it. The brother who loved Tyrion, the knight who had once saved a city from fire, the man chained to a queen who called cruelty strength. Jaime took a half-step forward. "Cersei," she did not slow. "We're leaving." Euron Greyjoy's smile returned, bright as a blade. He leaned in toward Jaime as they moved, his voice low and amused. "Shame," he murmured. "I was starting to enjoy the show." Daenerys's body went still, and stillness on her looked like the moment before a dragon struck. Her hands curled, and Jon remembered, with a jolt, that she was barely holding back, that she could turn this ruin into a furnace with a single word. "Daenerys," Tyrion said quickly, urgently. His eyes pleaded. "Don't. Not here. Not now. Not in front of the city that would call you mad for breathing." Daenerys did not speak. Her gaze followed Cersei, hard and unblinking. Jon stepped closer to her, and the heat of her anger seemed to radiate. "She's going to use this," he said quietly. "Whatever happens." "I know," Daenerys replied, and her voice was razor-thin. She looked at him then, eyes dark with something more than fury. "You could have given her what she wanted." Jon held her gaze. "And then what?" he asked. "We defeat the dead and she still calls us liars. She still finds a reason to betray. Or I become the man who swears away the realm because it was easier than telling the truth." Daenerys's nostrils flared. For a heartbeat, Jon thought she might spit fire at him like one of her dragons. Then, slowly, her shoulders eased, just enough to show she had heard him. Tyrion watched Cersei retreating with her retinue, and something like dread crept up the back of his neck. He knew his sister. He knew the shape of her lies. This was not refusal, it was performance. A door slammed loudly, so you didn't hear the lock turning behind it. "Give me a moment," Tyrion said. Daenerys's eyes snapped to him. "No," she said. "You've given her enough moments." "I know," Tyrion said, voice tight. "But if there is even a chance?" Daenerys echoed, bitter. "You've been chasing chances with her your entire life. Where has it brought you?" Tyrion swallowed. "To a place where I still have to try," he said. He didn't wait for permission. He turned and strode after Cersei, his small figure moving quickly across the Dragonpit floor. Jon watched him go and felt a twisting unease, as if the ground beneath them was cracking the way the ice had cracked north of the wall. Davos stepped closer to Jon, voice low. "You did the right thing," he said, but he sounded unconvinced even as he tried to convince. Jon didn't answer. His eyes remained on Cersei's retreating back, on Jaime's stiff posture beside her, on the way the queen's black gown swallowed the light. The wight thrashed again, chains rattling hard enough to ring like bells. It wanted out. So did the war. The Red Keep had always been a maze built to trap the unwary. Tyrion Lannister knew its passages the way a rat knew a cellar, by memory, by smell, by the feel of cold stone and old secrets. But walking it now felt different. The walls seemed closer, the torchlight dimmer, as though the castle itself sensed something was changing and tightened around it. He found them in a chamber that smelled of wax and wine and something sharper beneath. Fear hidden behind perfume. Cersei stood near a tall window, her back to him, looking out over King's Landing as if it belonged to her by divine right. Qyburn waited near the door, hands folded, expression mild in the way only a man with no conscience could be mild. And then there was Gregor Clegane. The mountain stood silent in white armor, a towering presence that made the room feel smaller. His helmet was off. His face was a ruin, skin pale and waxy, eyes dark and empty. He did not breathe like a living man. Tyrion could not see his chest rise. The sight sent a chill through him that no hearth could warm. Cersei turned slowly. "My little brother," she said, voice soft, almost affectionate, and the sound was more frightening than any shout. Tyrion stopped at a careful distance. "You saw it," he said. "I saw a monster," Cersei replied. "I've seen many. This one doesn't stop," Tyrion said. He forced his voice to stay calm, to stay even. Panic would make him foolish. It doesn't tire. It doesn't hunger. It doesn't feel pain. It only kills. Multiply that by 100,000 and tell me you still think your walls will hold." Cersei smiled faintly. "You always did love numbers." Tyrion's jaw tightened. "This isn't a game." "Everything is a game," Cersei said. Her gaze slid past him, toward the doorway, toward the distant sound of dragons overhead, roars that vibrated through stone like thunder. "You bring the enemy to my doorstep. You killed our father. You murdered my children with your stupidity and your alliances. And now you want me to trust you. I never wanted your trust," Tyrion said, voice hardening. "I want your fear. I want you to understand that the dead don't care about your grudges." Cersei stared at him for a long moment. Tyrion could almost hear the calculations behind her eyes, the shifting of pieces on a board only she could see. Then she exhaled slowly, as if conceding something. "Very well," she said. "I will send my armies north." Relief hit Tyrion so fast it nearly buckled his knees. He didn't let it show. "You will?" he asked, careful. Cersei stepped closer, her black gown whispering over the floor. "Yes," she said, and she reached out, touching his cheek with cold fingers. "I will help save the realm." The gesture made Tyrion's skin crawl. Behind her, Qyburn's thin smile never changed. Gregor Clegane remained still as a monument, watching with eyes that did not blink. Tyrion forced himself to nod. "Thank you," he said, though the words tasted wrong. Cersei's smile widened. "Don't thank me," she whispered. "Just go." Tell your queen what she wants to hear." As Tyrion turned to leave, he felt her gaze on his back like a knife being tested for sharpness. He walked out of the chamber with the fragile, sinking certainty that his sister had agreed too easily. When Tyrion returned to the Dragonpit, the air felt even colder, though the day had not changed. Daenerys stood where she had been, shoulders rigid, gaze fixed on the entrance as if willing it to open by force alone. Jon Snow watched Tyrion's face the moment he appeared, reading him the way he read the sky before a storm. Tyrion's expression was composed, but there was something strained behind it, like a man holding a cup too full, trying not to spill. "She agreed," Tyrion said. Daenerys did not react at first, as if she couldn't allow herself the weakness of hope. "Agreed to what?" she asked, voice flat. "To the truce," Tyrion said. "To sending the Lannister armies north. She will stand with us against the dead." Jon felt Davos exhale beside him, a sound like a prayer released. Daenerys' eyes narrowed, suspicion warring with relief. "Why?" she asked. "Why would she do that?" Tyrion hesitated just a fraction. "Because she saw the wight," he said. "Because she understands what's coming." Daenerys studied him. Then she looked past him as Cersei re-entered, black gown sweeping, chin high, her face composed into a mask of reluctant duty. Jaime walked beside her, expression unreadable, and Jon caught the brief flicker in Jaime's eyes, something like shame. Cersei stopped a careful distance from Daenerys, as though proximity itself might be contagious. "It seems," Cersei said, voice carrying easily, "that even I can recognize a true threat when it presents itself." Daenerys' mouth tightened. "You will send your armies," she said, not a question. "I will," Cersei replied. "We will set aside our dispute until the dead are destroyed." The words sounded right. The tone did not. The chained wight was still thrashing, straining toward living warmth. A few guards, Lannister men, pale-faced, dragged it closer to a brazier and shoved it into flame. Fire caught, and the dead thing screamed, the sound echoing up through broken arches. Smoke curled, black and oily, rising to mingle with the shadows of dragons overhead. As the wight burned, Cersei's eyes remained on Daenerys. "After," Cersei said lightly, "we can return to our discussions." Daenerys' gaze sharpened. "After," she said, and the word held steel. Jon watched Cersei's face, searching for some crack, some sign of true fear, true commitment. He found none. He found only a queen who had survived by never showing the world her throat. Jaime's eyes flicked to Jon briefly, and in them Jon saw something like apology that could never be spoken aloud. The white scream died as flame consumed it, leaving only crackling and the stench of burnt flesh. For a moment, the dragon pit felt like the mouth of a furnace. Then Cersei stepped back. "We're done here," she said. "Your Grace." Daenerys did not bow. "We are," she agreed. As the groups began to separate, Tyrion walked beside Daenerys, his steps measured. Jon fell in behind them. The noise of the city drifted in from beyond the ruin, distant as houts, carts, life continuing ignorant and stubborn. Outside, the dragon's roars rolled across King's Landing like thunder. The sound made people flinch in the streets, made horses rear, made children cry. Jon saw faces turned upward, fear and awe tangled together. Daenerys looked at those faces and seemed to harden again, as if reminding herself of what she carried. Jon leaned slightly toward Tyrion as they walked. "You believe her?" he murmured. Tyrion's smile was thin. "I believe she said the words," he replied. "And I believe she meant something." He paused, eyes distant. "I'm just not certain it's the thing we want." Cersei Lannister did not wait long after the dragon pit. The moment Daenerys Targaryen's retinue had left the city, the red keep tightened like a fist. Doors closed, guards doubled, whispers ran along corridors like rats. In her solar, Cersei stood over a map of Westeros, her fingers resting on the north as if she could feel the cold through parchment. Qyburn hovered nearby, his hands folded, his expression serene. Euron Greyjoy lounged with casual confidence, boot on a chair, as if the entire realm were a tavern he intended to drink dry. Jaime Lannister stood to one side, silent, watching. On the table lay a model, wood and iron, of Qyburn's scorpion. Its arms were thick, its mechanism complex, its bolt long and cruel. It looked like a crossbow built by a man who hated gods. "They're leaving," Qyburn said softly. "The Dragon Queen will sail soon. North, I presume." "They're fools," Euron said, grinning. "Going to fight dead men in the snow. Meanwhile, we sit in the sun and sip wine." Cersei's gaze remained fixed on the map. "They'll bleed," she said. "They'll burn. They'll throw everything they have at the dead." Her mouth curved slightly. "And what will be left when they return?"
Eurones green videnet.
"Nothing," he said. "That's the point." Jaime's jaw tightened. "You promised," he said, and his voice sounded hoarse, as though the word had scraped his throat. "You stood there and you promised." Cersei didn't look at him. "I said what needed to be said," she replied. "To send them north. To keep them from burning my city today." "You're going to let the dead come," Jaime said, and there was disbelief in him, as if he still could not accept what he knew her to be. "You're going to let them fight alone." Cersei turned then, slow, and her eyes were cold. "No," she said. "I'm going to let them weaken each other." Jaime stared. "The dead don't weaken," he said. "They don't fight each other. They don't tire." Cersei's smile was sharp. "Dragons tire," she said. "Armies tire. Queens bleed." She stepped closer to the scorpion model and ran a finger along its bolt as if stroking a pet. "Qyburn," she said. "How many of these can you build?" Qyburn's mild expression did not change. "With enough iron," he said. "And enough men who do not ask questions, many." Euron leaned forward, eyes bright. "I want one on every wall," he said. "I want to watch a dragon fall. Gods, that would be a song." Cersei's gaze slid to him. "You will get me the Golden Company," she said. "You will sail to Essos and bring them. Immediately." Euron's smile faltered only because he enjoyed pretending to be in control. "That costs," he said. Cersei's eyes hardened. "Everything costs," she replied. "You want to be king? Prove you can buy a kingdom." Euron's grin returned, feral. "I'll bring you 10,000 men," he said. "And when I return, I want my reward." Cersei's smile did not reach her eyes. "Of course," she said. Jaime looked between them and felt something incy. To him crack further. "You're planning to fight Daenerys," he said, voice low. "Not the dead." "I'm planning to survive," Cersei said. "If the dead win, we die. If the Dragon Queen wins, we die. Unless..." Her gaze flicked to the scorpion again. "Unless we remove her advantage." Jaime's voice went tight. "Her dragons." Cersei lifted her chin. "Her dragons," she confirmed. Outside, somewhere in the city, a faint roar drifted. Distant now, but still deep enough to make the glass in the windows tremble. It was as if the dragons were reminding them they existed. Cersei's eyes narrowed toward the sound. "3," she murmured. "The world thinks they are gods." She looked back at Jaime, and for a moment her face softened. Not with love, but with something like possession. "And you," she said quietly, "you will stand with me." Jaime felt the weight of that sentence like chains tightening around his throat. Jaime waited until Euron Greyjoy had sauntered out with promises and laughter, until Qyburn had drifted toward the door like smoke. Even then, Cersei did not dismiss Gregor Clegane. The mountain remained in the room, silent, towering, the way a threat remained even when no one spoke it aloud. Jaime's hands flexed at his sides. His golden one felt heavier, useless. His real hand trembled slightly, and he hated himself for it. "You're going to betray them," he said again, quieter now, as if lowering his voice might make the words less monstrous. Cersei's gaze was unwavering. "I am going to protect our child," she replied. Jaime's breath caught. "Don't," he said, and the plea slipped out before he could stop it. "Don't use that. Don't wrap your cruelty in a baby and call it love." Cersei's eyes flashed. "You think I don't love this child?" she snapped. "After everything we've lost?" Jaime's voice rose despite himself. "We lost them because you couldn't stop," he said. "Because you couldn't bend. Because you'd rather watch the world burn than let someone else hold the matches." Cersei stepped closer, her face hard. "And you?" she said. "You're suddenly a saint? You who killed men for me. You who stood beside me while I did what I had to do." Jaime's jaw clenched. "I stood beside you because I thought there was something left to save," he said. "I thought there was a line you wouldn't cross." Cersei's smile was bitter. "There is no line," she said. "There is only winning and losing." Jaime stared at her and remembered another line. Another day, standing in a throne room with a mad king screaming for wildfire, screaming for the city to burn, and Jaime had driven a sword into his back because he could not bear to let innocents die for a crown. He looked at Cersei now and saw the same madness, dressed in black and smiling. "You saw it," Jaime said, voice breaking. "You saw the dead. You saw what's coming. You still," he struggled for words, "you still think you can outplay it." Cersei's eyes narrowed. "I can," she said, "because I do not rely on honor or mercy. I rely on certainty." Jaime took a step forward. "And what certainty is that?" he demanded. Cersei lifted her hand, resting it on her belly. The gesture was protective, almost tender. "That I will not die," she said. "Not for them, not for their causes, not for their love stories in the snow." Jaime's throat tightened. He thought of Brienne of Tarth, of the way she looked at vows as if they were holy. He thought of the way the North smelled, cold, clean, honest. He thought of the way Cersei's rooms always smelled of perfume trying to hide rot. "I can't," he said, and the words surprised him with their simplicity. "I can't do this." Cersei's expression sharpened. "You can," she said softly. "You always have." Jaime shook his head once, hard. "Not this," he said. "Not again. Not another city." His eyes flicked to Gregor Clegane, to the silent monster in white armor. "Not another Ma. D ruler who thinks fear is enough." Cersei's eyes went cold. "If you leave," she said, voice quiet, "you are leaving me." Jaime's mouth twisted. "I left you the day you decided everyone else could die for your throne," he said. For a moment, the room felt like it might explode. Cersei's hand tightened on her belly. Her lips parted, as if to scream, as if to plead, as if to threaten. Instead, she smiled. "If you walk out that door," she said, "you will die." Jaime looked at her and felt something inside him go numb. "Then I'll die," he said, and turned away. Behind him, Gregor Clegane shifted slightly, the faint scrape of armor like a warning. Jaime didn't flinch. He walked out with his spine straight, the sound of his boots loud on stone. Cersei watched him go, her smile fading into something like fury, and beneath it, something like fear she would never admit. Dragonstone at night felt older than kingdoms, older than names. The sea hurled itself against black rock as it always had, as it always would, long after thrones turned to dust. Torches burned along the terrace, their flames bending in the wind, and the smell of smoke mingled with salt. Drogon lay stretched across the stone like a wounded god. Men approached him carefully, healers, handlers, those with the bravery of ignorance and the caution of sense. They warmed water, they stitched where they could, they pressed cloth to a wound that still seeped dark blood. Drogon's eye opened now and then, watching them with the patience of a predator that could kill all of them in a breath but chose not to because Daenerys asked him not to. Daenerys sat beside him, her hand resting against a scale the size of a shield. She spoke to him softly in Viserion, words low and rhythmic. Drogon's breathing eased slightly when she spoke, as if her voice was a rope pulling him back from pain. Jon Snow stood a few paces away, wrapped in furs, the cut on his leg throbbing beneath bandages. Davos hovered at his side, uneasy in the presence of dragons and queens. Above them, on a jagged ridge of stone, Viserion and Regal perched like sentinels, their eyes gleaming in torchlight. Viserion's pale scales caught the flame and made him look carved from gold. Regal's darker hues drank the light like shadow. Daenerys finally looked up, her face drawn with exhaustion and anger that had nowhere to go. "Your leg," she said. "It will heal," Jon replied. Daenerys's gaze slid to Drogon's wound. "So will his," she said, but the certainty sounded forced. She swallowed. "I watched you fall," she added quieter. The admission caught in her throat like a bone. She did not finish. Jon stepped closer, careful not to startle Drogon. Heat rolled off the dragon's body in waves. Jon felt it against his cold skin and thought of the frozen lake, of how different warmth felt when you'd been sure you would die. "You came," Jon said simply. Daenerys's mouth twisted. "Of course I came," she said, as if offended by the idea she could have done otherwise. "You brought me proof. You brought me death in a box. You," she exhaled sharply. "You were right." Jon didn't smile. "It isn't about being right," he said. "It's about being ready." Daenerys's eyes glittered. "And are we?" she asked. "Ready? Because I saw him. I saw the Night King throw that spear. I saw Drogon bleed." Her voice tightened. "They can kill dragons." Jon's gaze lifted instinctively to Viserion and Regal perched above. 3 dragons. 3 beating hearts of fire. He felt a sick twist at the thought of losing any of them, at the thought of watching another creature fall into the hands of the dead. "He learns," Jon said. "He watches. He waits." Daenerys's hand flexed against Drogon's scale. "So do I," she said, and the words sounded like a vow. Silence stretched between them, filled by Drogon's slow breathing and Isai's endless roar. Then Daenerys looked at Jon, and something in her expression softened, just enough to let vulnerability show at the edge. "You wouldn't lie," she said. "It wasn't a question." Jon shook his head. "I couldn't," he replied. Daenerys's mouth curved, not into a smile, but into something like reluctant respect. "That will get you killed," she said. "It nearly did," Jon answered. Daenerys's gaze lingered on his face, on the bruises and the cold burned skin, on the stubbornness that still held him upright. "And yet," she said quietly, "it's why I believe you." Above, Viserion shifted, wings rustling, and a low, rumbling sound came from his throat. A warning, perhaps, or a question. Regal answered with a deeper growl. Jon glanced up. "They watch you," he said. Daenerys looked up too. For a moment, her face softened further, as if she allowed herself to be only a woman beside her wounded beast, not a queen measuring war. "They are my children," she said. Jon hesitated, then said what he hadn't expected to say. "Then we'll protect them," he said. "All of them." Daenerys's eyes returned to him, sharp and searching. Then she nodded once, slow. "Yes," she said. "We will." The war room filled again, as if the island itself demanded that decisions be made. The painted table map of Westeros seemed less like a conquest now and more like a wound. Too many points of pain, too many places where men would die. Daenerys stood at its head, hair braided back tighter than before, as if she could bind her fear into something useful. Tyrion sat to one side, his face drawn with fatigue. Varys watched from the edge, calm as ever, eyes flicking like a raven's. Missandei stood near Daenerys, hands clasped, while Grey Worm remained still and ready. Jon Snow leaned over the map, his finger hovering near the wall. "The dead are massing," he said. "They're not through, but they're pressing, testing." "And Cersei?" Daenerys asked, her gaze cutting to Tyrion. Tyrion's mouth tightened. "She agreed," he said again, and the words sounded less convincing in this room, away from the Dragonpit's theatrical smoke and screams. Daenerys studied him. "You don't believe her," she said. Tyrion exhaled. "I believe she fears the dead," he admitted. "And I believe she fears you more." Varys's voice drifted in, soft as silk. "Fear makes people clever," he said. "Or desperate." Grey Worm spoke in his flat, precise voice. "If Cersei Lannister lies, we kill her." Tyrion's laugh was humorless. "It's never that simple," he said. Jon's finger tapped the map. "Whether she lies or not, we go north," he said. "We fortify, we prepare. If she comes, good. If she doesn't, we still fight." Daenerys stared at the northern edge of the table, at the black line that represented the wall. "And my armies?" she asked. "If I march everything north, I leave the south open." Davos cleared his throat. "If you don't march north," he said, "there won't be a south to keep." Daenerys's gaze flicked to him. Davos held it, a smuggler turned advisor, a man with no love for queens but a deep love for survival. Tyrion leaned forward. "We can leave a force at Dragonstone," he said. "A garrison, enough to hold the island and watch the sea. The dragons can move faster than any fleet. We can respond if Cersei moves. And if Euron Greyjoy moves," Varys added quietly. "He will not sit idle while dragons fly." Daenerys's mouth tightened. "He won't," she agreed. She remembered Euron's grin, the way his eyes had tracked the sky as if already imagining a dragon falling. Jon's voice was rough but steady. "The Night King will not wait for us to solve our politics," he said. "He will come when he is ready, and when he comes, every sword matters." Daenerys's eyes slid to him. "And what of you?" she asked softly, as if the question had layers. Jon felt the room's attention shift. Tyrion watched him intently. Varys's eyes narrowed slightly. Missandei looked between them, sensing tension. Grey Worm remained still. Jon swallowed. "I'll go back to the north," he said. "I'll prepare Winterfell. I'll unite what I can. The northern lords will follow me." Daenerys's gaze held his. "Will they follow me?" she asked. Jon hesitated. "They'll follow me because I'm one of them," he said. "They'll fight beside you because the dead give them no choice. But they will not love you for it." Daenerys's expression hardened, but there was something wounded beneath it. "Love?" she echoed softly, as if tasting the word. "I don't need love." Tyrion's voice was careful. "It helps," he said. Daenerys ignored him. She stared down at the map, then looked up again, eyes fierce. "We sail north," she said, "as soon as Drogon can fly without pain." A distant roar echoed through the stone halls, as if the dragons themselves approved. Jon nodded. "Then I go ahead," he said. "I'll ride from White Harbor. I'll reach Winterfell before you." Daenerys's gaze caught on him. For a moment, she looked like she wanted to say something else. Something personal, something dangerous. Instead, she simply said, "Don't die." Jon's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "I'll try not to," he replied. Outside the war room, the sea roared endlessly. Somewhere north, winter tightened its grip. And somewhere behind walls of red stone, a queen in black sharpened her knives. And somewhere far beyond all of them, the Night King was learning how to kill fire without needing to steal it. Jaime Lannister left King's Landing like a man walking out of a fire he had once sworn to stop. The city gates groaned as they opened, and the sound made something in him flinch, as if he expected an alarm, a shout, Gregor Clegane's heavy footsteps thundering behind him. But no one stopped him. Perhaps Cersei believed he would come crawling back. Perhaps she was too busy building her next trap. Perhaps she wanted him to leave because his conscience was an inconvenient mirror. The air outside the walls was cold enough to sting. A few flakes drifted down, snow impossibly early, melting on stone before it could settle. Felt like a warning written in the sky. Jaime pulled his cloak tighter and urged his horse forward. The animal's breath steamed, nostrils flaring. The road stretched ahead, brown and muddy, leading away from the city's stink and noise toward lands that would soon be white and silent. He did not look back at first. He couldn't. Looking back meant seeing Cersei's face, meant remembering the way she smiled when she lied, meant feeling the weight of every year he had spent calling her love when it was really chains. Only when the Red Keep's shadow fell behind him did he risk a glance. The castle loomed, proud and cruel, and for a heartbeat Jaime imagined it empty, its halls silent, its throne room filled with dust and bones. He imagined Cersei alone in the dark, clutching her belly, whispering to a child who might never be born. His throat tightened, and he forced himself to look away again. From a shadowed archway near the gate, Bronn watched him go, arms folded, expression unreadable. Jaime met his gaze briefly. Bronn lifted his chin in a gesture that could have meant anything. Mockery, respect, warning. Jaime didn't stop. He didn't speak. Words felt too small for what he was doing. He rode onward, the city shrinking behind him, the snowflakes thickening slightly, as if winter itself had decided to follow. As the road bent and trees swallowed the view of King's Landing, Jaime let himself breathe a fraction easier. Then, in the distance, he heard it, faint, carried on the wind. A dragon's roar. It rolled across the landscape like thunder and made Jaime's horse shy. Jaime steadied the animal, heart hammering. The roar was far, far away now, but the memory of it, 3 shadows gliding over broken stone, remained vivid. 3 dragons, 3 instruments of power, and somewhere beyond them, an army of dead men waiting in silence. Jaime tightened his grip on the reins until his knuckles whitened. He had once killed a king to save a city. Now he was riding toward the end of the world, hoping, absurdly, that he could save something of himself. The sea turned rough as they pushed north, as if it resented their purpose. Waves rose like dark shoulders and slammed against hulls hard enough to rattle teeth. The sky hung low and gray, the horizon blurred into a single line of steel. Daenerys stood on deck, her cloak snapping in the wind, hair braided and pinned so it would not whip into her eyes. Beside her, Tyrion clung to the rail with one hand and a cup he did not drink from in the other, his face pale from salt spray and something deeper. Jon Snow stood near the bow, eyes fixed ahead. The farther north they sailed, the more the air changed. It grew sharper, cleaner, colder, smelled less like sea and more like snow. Above, Drogon flew low, his wing beats slightly uneven. The wound on his shoulder had been bound as best they could, strips of cloth and leather darkened with dried blood. Even wounded, he looked invincible, an avalanche-given breath. But Jon saw the subtle differences, the small hesitation in his movement, the way Daenerys' eyes tracked him constantly, as if willing him whole. Regal and Viserion wheeled higher, their wings cutting through mist. Viserion's pale body was a streak of gold against gray sky, and Jon felt a strange gratitude every time he saw him. Alive, unclaimed by the dead. The Night King had missed. The world had been spared. For now, the horror of a dragon turned against the living. Tyrion stepped closer to Daenerys, raising his voice above the wind. "If Cersei sends her armies," he said, "they'll have to march north through lands already starving." Daenerys' gaze remained on the horizon. "If she sends them," she replied. Tyrion flinched slightly. "You think she won't?" Daenerys' mouth tightened. "I think she will do what keeps her alive," she said. "And what keeps her alive is not always what keeps the realm alive." Jon's voice was quiet but carried in the wind. "She'll wait," he said. "She'll wait for us to bleed." Daenerys turned her head slightly, looking at him. Her eyes were dark, tired, and fierce. "And what about you?" she asked. "What will you do when we reach Winterfell? When your sister looks at me like I'm a threat?" Jon's throat tightened. "Sansa Stark doesn't trust easily," he said. "She's had too many kings promise salvation and bring ruin." Daenerys' gaze sharpened. "And do you trust me?" she asked, as if the question mattered more than any alliance. Jon looked at her, and for a moment he saw not a queen, but the girl who had been sold and hunted and forced to become steel. He saw the woman who had flown into a frozen hell to save strangers. He saw the dragon queen who had watched her child bleed and did not break. "I trust you to fight," Jon said. "I trust you to stand when the cold comes, and I trust you to do what you think is right." Daenerys' mouth curved slightly, not quite a smile. "That's not the same as trusting me," she said. Jon held her gaze. "No," he admitted, "but it's more than most rulers ever deserve. Irion watched them, the space between them charged with something he did not name. He had seen alliances forged by necessity, by ambition, by fear. This felt different, dangerous in a quieter way. A gust of wind tore across the deck, and for a moment Jon's breath misted thickly. Snowflakes drifted down, sparse at first, then more, melting on wood and skin. The sailors cursed softly and pulled their cloaks tighter. Daenerys lifted her face to the falling snow, eyes narrowing. "Winter is already here," she murmured. Jon stared north, as if he could see through the storm to the wall, still standing, still black against white. He imagined the dead gathered on the far side, silent, patient. He imagined blue eyes watching from darkness. Somewhere ahead, Winterfell waited. Somewhere behind, King's Landing sharpened its scorpions. And somewhere far beyond all of them, the Night King was learning how to kill fire without needing to steal it.